Who am I? The topic: conflicts challenge your identity. If you've found that this video helps you, please forward it and write to us, and we'd love to hear from you so that we can improve. My wife and I, many years ago, did a very interesting test. It was called the DISC test. And in this test, there are 4 possibilities or where you could have strengths. And my first position was D, dominant, and my wife had D in the second position. What was very interesting, though, that we saw in this test, there was a second graph, and this graph showed how one responded under pressure. So if there's a conflict, what do? And we saw that in our graph, our D's, our dominance, increased. So that meant nobody wanted to lose. We wanted to absolutely push our opinions through, and you can imagine how this led to conflicts. Every one of us, all people, have a specific behavioral pattern when it comes to conflicts. You behave in a specific way that always is apparent. Maybe you're offensive, maybe you hold back, maybe you stop talking, maybe you just sweep things under the carpet and say, I'm not going to talk about that again, etc., etc. We have these behavioral patterns. What is very important, though, and of course what could be a problem, is when you're a team leader or you are part of a large team and working in the team, and the conflicts are never resolved because you have a specific behavioral pattern that is dangerous for this team, and this is not good for the leader. Every leader will have conflicts. It's just programmed that way if you're the leader. And in these conflicts, your true identity is placed on the table. Others will see who you are. You will also see who you really are, because these conflicts challenge, and then in your life they show your heart and your identity. And that's why it's so important and a help for leaders to have a healthy identity and listen to others, and also in these areas are prepared to strengthen their identity so that they can resolve conflict. In James 3 we read, "For jealousy and selfishness are not God's kind of wisdom. Such things are earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder of every kind. But the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is also peace-loving, gentle at all times, and willing to yield to others. It is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism and is always sincere." Be bold to have a look at your attitudes. Go to God and ask Him for wisdom for your life. You can have and develop good leadership qualities that will be a blessing for your team. And now to looking at conflict resolution. In all the years, over 20 years in Dresden, I've seen that there are 2 things that often creep up when it comes to conflict resolution. Firstly, an obstacle. Number 1, if one is not willing to take responsibility for the mistakes or failures that they have made. People that are not prepared to take responsibility and to say, I'm really sorry. Finished. Full stop. Unconditionally. This helps. It resolves conflict. The second obstacle, when you experience criticism and you take it as an attack on your self-worth. These people are unable to separate the self-worth from the conflict. Everything is seen as an attack on my person, and I cannot separate the incident from my person. And if this is a situation, one just never reaches a good result because I feel you're rejecting me, and you just know that it's impossible to discuss this then. When we have these two obstacles, this conflict accelerates and becomes so much bigger than what it needs to be. And we very seldom solve these things in the future. So how do we deal with this? What do we do when we say this is an area that I need to work on? Ask yourself, first of all, how do I react in a conflict situation? What do I do? What is my first reaction after that? Secondly, ask yourself, what would be a good way to react? And I find it's good, even for married couples or a team where there are no conflicts, sit down together and say, how could we do things better when we have a conflict? What should we do? And think through these things in your head. And then thirdly, seek God's help and ask Him to transform you, to change you. Romans 12 verse 1 and 2 says, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think." What we read here is that it is possible to change the way we think through Him. He can do this. And it's hope for us. As believers, we know this is possible. And if we want to then have a look at the two conflict areas I had mentioned already, then we see the following. When I want to change through His love, and I find my identity in God, my worth in God, when I say I'm sorry and apologize for my mistakes, when I take responsibility for the things that I've done wrong, I don't lose my self-worth. It happens, and I can say, I'm sorry about this. In the same way, when I know that my value and identity is in God, things can happen. Criticism can come my way, but I hold that within boundaries, and I don't allow that to determine my self-worth. I don't take it all personally and make it into a problem in my life, because I know my stability and my security is in His love. When we do this, we will become good problem solvers, conflict solvers. We'll know our identity, we'll see what's in our hearts, but we will also become secure and lead our teams well.